What's up, tribe? Nick here in Ottawa, and in this video I want to talk about doing experiments. So at TFC, our whole community are really big advocates of people doing their own research when it comes to health. Okay, now I think a lot of people think of research as being in a lab looking at test tubes, but research really just means doing experiments. And there's some objective truths out there in the world that can help guide you. So, an objective truth would be something like type 2 diabetes is preventable and reversible, or wearing footwear that's shaped like your foot and allows your foot to move naturally is better than wearing shoes that don't let your foot work like it's supposed to. Those are objective truths. And my opinion doesn't matter, your opinion doesn't matter, because it's based on science. And, a bunch of people essentially agree that these things are true, and science has proven it to be so. So there's objective truths that are important, but you need to do your own research when it comes to health. And one thing that can really help is if other people share the research with you, right? If I'm doing experiments and I can rule out a bunch of things and share that with you to avoid you making the same mistakes, or to avoid having to do as many experiments or put as much energy into the experiments, then that's cool. And that's kind of what our content team does. We just share the experiments we've done with you in hopes that it inspires you, but also empowers you with a clearer path. Now, when it comes to doing actual experiments, I think it's important to understand at a broad level the framework of how we actually do experiments, okay? Because like I said, objective truths are important. Type 2 diabetes is preventable, I have it. So how the heck do I not have it, right? That process of how you get from point A to point B is where the experiments come into play. And when you're thinking of doing an experiment, knowing the important elements of the framework of using the scientific method to validate something is very important. So you have to start with a question, right? In science, they call it a hypothesis, but it's basically a question that you're asking, which then stimulates you to take the next step in doing the experiment. So a question might be, and it's not, I'm going to guess that improving the quality of my sleep gives me more energy in the morning. So that would be an example of a question, okay? That question then stimulates you to think of an experiment. Okay, well, I'm going to go to bed an hour earlier and not look at screens for 2 hours before I go to bed. And I'm going to see if when I wake up, I feel better or have more energy, or it's not as hard to wake up. So that would be an experiment, right? And you have to have variables that you can change. So changing your behaviors pre-bedtime is the variable that you change. And then you have to have variables that you measure, right? So how much energy you have during the day or how easy it was to wake up would be a variable that you measure. And then you have to design the experiment. So for example, it might be, I'm going to do this kind of pre-bed routine for 2 weeks, and I'm going to see if by changing my pre-bed behaviors, my energy level in the morning changes. A very important thing with this whole design is recording data. Okay, so recording data doesn't mean just thinking about how you felt each day. It means writing down each day, how did you feel? Right, this is what I did before bed. This is how I felt when I woke up. That is a very beautiful way to collect data. It doesn't have to be crazy, but you have to record something. After those 2 weeks, you have to look at all the data and essentially generate a conclusion. Either changing your pre-bed routine made you have more energy in the morning, or it didn't. So it gives you a result. But I think most people just kind of guess. They don't really record the data. They don't really think of it as an experimental design where they're trying to isolate variables. And this is doing experiments video number 1 in awareness. In number 2, I'm going to explain a bit deeper the scientific method, the stages of doing experiments and how you can really dial in on that. And then in the third one, I'm going to give a case study, a detailed case study of sort of a recent experiment I did, which was really kind of interesting. And I want to go into really into the nitty gritty of the exact things I did to do this experiment. And the experiment was taking away my second coffee each day and seeing how it changed my sleep. So hopefully, I think the goal with all this is when it comes to health, do your own research. There are objective truths which can guide good questions or good experiments for you to run, but you still need to understand the framework of how to do a good experiment in order to be successful. Make sure we want to share our research with you, and that's what most of this is. We're not claiming to know the truth. We're just letting people know where we're at right now in our discovery of truth, because perpetually it's a discovery, right? You're always doing experiments to see if you can feel better, have more energy, be more productive, enjoy your life more, all this kind of stuff. Your life is a grand experiment, basically. But we're talking about starting with the small experiments that lead up to health. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a good understanding. Do your own research. We're here to share ours. Understand the framework of creating an experiment. And in video number 2, we'll talk about the specific elements involved in the framework of an experiment. Thanks for listening.